Good evening. Welcome to the East Lyme Board of Finance special meeting. Today is Tuesday, April 1st, 2025. The time is 5:30 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on the agenda is delegations, where a member of the public can speak to us on any of the items on tonight's agenda. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak? Basically, what's on the agenda tonight is reviewing budget and budget deliberations. So if someone wanted to talk about the budget, free to.
I don't know if this is where I say thank you.
We're always happy to hear that. Come on up. And if you could state your name and your address, please.
My name is Betsy Getch, and I'm Historic Properties, and we would like to thank you for the money that you give us. Volunteerism saves you thousands of dollars because we're so fortunate to have so many people in East Lyme, but we appreciate all the support you give us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, on to new business, budget reviews. So we're now kind of completed going through the different town budgets, and now this is our first night of deliberation. So I'd like to welcome everyone to our budget deliberation night, and we are starting off with the Board of Ed budget. So I'd like to thank our members of the Board of Ed who are here either personally or electronically, so they're available to answer any questions that may come up. And again, Jeff and Mariana and the rest of the staff, thank you for helping to answer all of our questions. And I also just want to congratulate you on all that you've accomplished this year with our students. It was great to hear all of the, accolades from other sources and from our parents all the time. I think I'm especially grateful for the opportunities for the experiential learning. I think that's so important for our kids, whether they're bound for college or bound for a career elsewhere. So I just really appreciate all they do there. With that being said, we've got to look at the entire town and the impact on every property owner, families, business owners, small business owners, commercial property owners, etc. We have almost 19,000 residents and almost 2,500 students, and so we are trying to balance the needs while being cognizant of the financial challenges that we face here in Connecticut. We have the third highest property taxes in the United States, and we have the highest electricity costs in the country. The electricity costs affect us not just in our own personal electric bill, but they affect the town and the board in all of our buildings. So that in turn gets passed on to our taxpayers. So it's a tough year for a lot of people. So we are going to start with the Board of Ed, and then we're going to proceed with the rest of the town budget if needed. We have another meeting scheduled for further deliberations Monday, April 7th. And if needed, we'll conclude deliberations at the end of our regular April 9th meeting. We will present the budget April 28th at the public hearing at the high school, and then adjourn to the board meeting room upstairs for a special meeting where any final adjustments may be made after hearing input from people who wish to speak at the public hearing. The annual town meeting is where that final budget is then presented on May 12th at the high school. It will then go to a townwide referendum May 22nd. Voting will be at the community center from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. A number of people have asked me, what would happen if the budget were to fail in the referendum? And I have to admit, I had to go look it up, so I thought I would share it with people. Per our charter, should the budget fail to be approved by a majority of those voting thereon, the Board of Finance shall forthwith revise estimated expenditures without altering estimates of revenue, except for omissions, clerical errors, or revisions of revenue to be received from the state, to arrive at a revised spending level and automatically submit the revised budget to a referendum 14 days following the date the initial budget referendum was defeated. The Board of Finance shall hold at least one public hearing upon 5 days legal notice prior to submitting the revised budget for consideration. This process shall be repeated at 2-week succeeding intervals until such time as the budget is adopted. In the event said budget is not adopted by the third Wednesday in June, business shall be conducted in accordance with Section 7-405 of 12-123 of the general statutes as amended. So with that being said, I am very much hopeful that we can come to a budget that the town embraces. While every budget is challenging, I think we've had to deal with a number of unforeseen issues this past year that are still carrying over into this next budget year, whether it's been the significantly increased pension contributions, the costs associated with the situation with the police chief, everything from the failed seawall at McCook's Park, investments that we've had to make in our fire safety and IT personnel and infrastructure. All of this has contributed to the use of almost $1 million of our fund balance so far, which I hate to do. We're also challenged with the need to retain staff whether it's in public works or here in town hall, where there's opportunities, or the Board of Ed, for staff members to go to the next town over and get a higher salary. So it's really incumbent upon the town and the Board of Ed to create that positive working environment where people want to stay and make their career here in East Lyme. So, so we have to look at all those salaries as well to see whether we continue to be competitive. So it was just, I think, last week that that I brought up that the Board of Ed's proposed budget increase of $4,032,725 would be a 6.72% increase to $64,057,400. So $1.9 million of that is mainly from salary increases and additional positions, and we realize that most of the other increase they have very little control over, whether it's contractual or healthcare or that. So I brought up that the student population at the high school has dropped by 135 students over the past 5 years, or 13%. At the same time, the high school staff increased by 1. I would have expected that the 13% reduction in students would have led to approximately 14 fewer staff members if you just extrapolate. I see other towns around us adjust their staffing levels with changes in population. So I'm not sure why we are unable to make those same adjustments. So just to clarify, Jeff, I do have another question. So how many open teacher positions are there at the high school right now? And if you could come up to the microphone.
Yeah. Right now, we're going into looking at next year.
What you're proposing?
Going into next year, there is 1.6 actually, because one is a technology position that we have, and then the other one, that 0.6 we talked about, the finance course that we're mandated by the state now to offer. We have to offer every student in high school the finance literacy course. So we don't have the capacity with the current staff to be able to do this. We had to increase from 0.4 to 1.0, so we added a 0.6.
So that includes anyone who's retiring or what have you?
Exactly. Yes, that's part of our issue. We only have, I think, around 3 retirements going into next year. We don't have a large contingency of folks, through attrition that are leaving, and we could look at positions. That over the next couple of years, we're going to start to see more and more. We have a larger group that's coming up the ranks that's going to be looking at retirement.
So if we didn't replace the 3 retirements, then that would be a savings of probably like 100,000 each.
Yeah, roughly, yes. But the problem is, like, with those positions are positions we have to replace. If I'm following your, I think you're just asking in general, if we weren't to replace 3
Right, but
positions, what the dollar figure would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, roughly, 100 to 80 to 100,000 apiece.
And how many are open para positions are there at the high school?
Can you know the exact number at the high school? We had 14 last time we saw. There's 14 open positions. That number might have dropped down to 10.
I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, we'll look up to get the exact high school number.
So if we didn't replace 7 or 8 of those, you could get to.
Well, we can't just say at the high school we won't replace parapositions, because some of those might be mandated per a PPT, through an IEP or in part of a PPT process. We would have to look across the board to find what's the least disruption to students. So it might not be at the high school. We might not be able to get rid of any positions at the high school, but there might be 1 or 2 that we would look at in the whole allotment if we were to look to cut parapositions, if that makes sense. That's the tricky part with the specific needs of students. 4.
At the high school.
So there's 4 positions at the high school,
4 at the high school, and then
and the other 10 are open, across the district. So I figured there's probably a smaller number at the high school, a lot of them at the elementary level.
just trying to get to some numbers.
Absolutely, yeah. No, again, we appreciate all the questions that you previously sent over to regarding the staffing.
So, and then I know with the adjustment to the healthcare insurance, that's a savings of 150,000.
150,000, yes. So our 6.72 comes down. I'm not sure the exact percentage. Mariana can pop it into our formula, but 150,000 in savings. So we dropped down to 9% from 11%.
Yeah. And then I really want to drill down on the population, because I know it's everybody loves the fact that they have small classrooms, but the chart that you shared with us said that the average English class size is 14.2 students, math, science, and social studies is 15, and world language is 14. So, I just can't help but compare that to our surrounding towns where it's 20 to 22, and class sizes this small are what you might expect at a private prep school where people are paying $70,000, $80,000 to go, and we're a public school system, and I realize we have high outcomes, but it's at a really high price, and other towns are able to achieve those high outcomes with a much lower cost. And given the constraint on the rest of your budget, it really seems like the only way you can really get that is to look at the staffing. And it seems like at the high school, it's particularly where there is room for improvement.
Yeah, I think with any reduction that may happen, the Board of Ed is going to have to go back and take a hard look across all positions and all schools to make sure they're doing a thorough approach. It's that issue, obviously, of having a lack of a number of retirements. If cuts are made, cuts are going to impact people's jobs, unfortunately. So, but the Board of Ed would have to go back out and look at all of them. But you are accurate on the numbers. We had shared the numbers and shared the numbers with the Board of Ed. The high school numbers, our class sizes are lower.
So, I think,
Oh, so we're down to 6.47% with the 150,000. Just so
okay.
you know what the new
Yep.
the new percentage is. Thanks, Kim.
And then I heard, you provided a response in writing when we were asking about the 7 coach positions that remain after the federal funding one. Can you just explain what coaches do? Or who are they and what are they doing?
Yeah, Elise, you want to come up and share a little bit of additional information? And let me start just by saying, coaches are, there's a split. We've kind of talked about, and it varies in percentage, 30, 70, 60, 40, where coaches are, let me start with instructional coaches. They're going into classrooms and they're providing cycles with the teachers in building the teacher's capacity as well as the student's capacity in the work that is occurring in a reading program, for instance, I'll use, or a math program, for instance, I'll use that kind of as an example. They have a greater level of training. We've had some really great success, and I'll let Annalise talk a little bit about that as well, with our coaches and the collaboration that's occurred. We do some 6 to 8 week cycles where the coaches are cycling through those classes and working directly with the teachers and the students.
Is it normally with the teachers that maybe are like with a bachelor's degree, not with a master's, or are they?
They would have a great, some might, but others have a greater capacity, have studied more intent, might not have a degree specifically, but might have taken coursework in the areas of a core reading, for instance. Work very well with other individuals as well, that collaboration factor, getting the team, pulling the team together, a grade level team, for instance. So it's worked to our benefit. A lot of districts have, the coaching model, and I know we've had that now for a couple of years, and it's been very effective.
How do you measure that?
Well, through our accountability, we shared some of the accountability index you saw. I know that we're in that upper quadrant versus that lower quadrant, but our students have done quite well and continue to do quite well. And that model seems to be working very well for us. Am I missing anything specific? I think that's the bottom line, yeah. So.
And then I didn't quite understand the answer regarding the 244% increase in the professional development. So are you saying that the state and federal mandates dictate that we pay that $85,498? There's no way to deliver that professional development at a lower cost?
You want to come up and speak to that?
They don't necessarily dictate the.
Good evening, Annalise Spaziano, Assistant Superintendent. The state doesn't dictate how much money has to be spent on professional development, but it does say that we are required to provide professional development to both our certified staff and our paraeducators that certain amount of time over the course of the year. The increase, I had provided you with a list of essentially the large items that are tied to that increase in $85,000. Some of those are mandated by the state, the PLAY initiative, and some of our work with regards to the rollout for our literacy program at the elementary level. There's a program we use for paraeducators to support their professional learning that's differentiated to their role in the school district and in the different buildings and their levels. So, the money isn't dictated by the state, but the requirements are.
The hours too.
And the hours.
18
And so, when I tried to give you sort of a per person cost, which is a pretty reasonable cost when you think about a year's worth of professional development for a professional over the course of a year.
It just seemed like a lot of it could be delivered electronically, and I think
You'd be surprised that the PD Monster is a portal that we have our para educators use for that, and it's pretty costly. Just because something's delivered electronically doesn't necessarily come at a reduced cost. It's the cost of a program and a development that someone developed and is selling as a product. So it doesn't necessarily reduce the cost.
I was looking at the CEA suite of professional development programs, but you had to be a member to see a price on it, but it seemed like it was a pretty robust offering. So I didn't know whether you'd had any experience with that one.
I can't necessarily speak to the CEA's, portal in terms of what they offer, but, we do try to create opportunities for teachers that are blended, both virtually and in person. I will say that Jeff spoke to the coaches and the work that they do individually with teachers in the classrooms, but they also do drive a lot of the professional development that's happened on a daily basis. So, our work with our vendor for Wit and Wisdom, it's a train-a-trainer model. So they're coming in and working with our coaches, and our coaches are turnkeying that professional development with our teachers as they're planning for implementation. So there's a blend of vendors that we pay, but also the folks that we employ that help to support that work.
And that train-to-trainer model is a savings because we're getting our own in-house staff trained to be able to provide those ongoing requirements and trainings. So, and you saw the number of software programs, too, that list that we shared, and a number of those. We do use a lot of virtual software and virtual programs for both training and student-based programs and teacher programs.
All right, so that was most of the questions that I had. I'd like to turn it over to see whether any of my fellow board members have anything they want to ask. Richard? John?
I had one question.
Yeah, John.
Along with the teachers in the classroom, how many other assistant people are in helping them?
That's just the paraeducators.
How many?
There are 114 total positions.
In any particular classroom, how many assist a teacher?
It all depends on the needs of a student. There could be 2 students in a classroom that have IEPs that dictate a 1-to-1. So 2 people might be in that room. Oftentimes, or sometimes, we might try and share a person across 2 students if appropriate. But the individualized education plan under the law, under special education, dictates how much time, how many hours of support is required. So a class could go a full day without anyone in the room. And many classes do, but oftentimes they might have 1, they might have 2. It varies.
So other than special needs, just the regular classrooms?
Well, the regular classrooms have special needs students. Exactly. Those students are in those regular ed classrooms. So, and then again, any given day, a high school English class. I was talking to a high school English teacher the other day. He said I had 2 paraprofessionals in because of the needs of 2 students. Again, we try, and that was for a short period of time, but we try and, again, vary that. You don't want too many adults in a room, obviously, but it all has to be based on need. Kim, am I missing anything? I mean, that's really the... Yeah, it varies all over the all of the classrooms that we have, John.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rich.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
I believe Denise had asked about how many AP courses we have and made a comparison to other districts, etc.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering, I know it's hard to figure out an approximate cost for an AP class, but how much would be an average cost for an AP class?
Well, I'm not sure how to quite quantify it because some teachers might teach 1 AP course, but there are other, and that's a 0.2, for instance. One class might be a 0.2, and the other 0.8 they're teaching, other sections. You'd have to break that all down, Rich, to see which ones are teaching which 0.2 or 0.4 of AP to try and calculate it out. So I wouldn't have that
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't want to guess at that, I guess, is the answer to the
That-
question. I'd be
that's
totally
fair.
guessing.
I
Yeah.
understand. It's difficult. It's just, if we're looking for any way to try to preserve positions and save money, you know, if we're offering 20 courses every year, maybe we could offer courses on a once in 4-year basis. And, you know,
Some other
students
options,
would
yeah.
still have it during their academic career, but, you know, it would reduce the amount of courses that we would need to offer.
Mhm. Okay.
Or by increasing the class size from 10 to 15 or 18, there's,
Well, and there's a trick, because we do, like, there's AP courses that have 2 other classes combined, you know, with them. So you do have situations of that where we do combine to make sure to bring that number up. So you don't necessarily have a class of 3 or 4, you know, students. So we always try and get to that number of 10 to, you know, to run a course. But it does vary with the add drops as well once the year starts. It might look great on paper at the beginning with over 10, and then the add drops come in, kids move around, the numbers fluctuate in the course of the year.
anything else, Rich?
No, that's it. Thank you. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Paul?
I'm all set.
Could you, I know Denise asked about the teachers that are retiring, and I believe you said it was mandated that their positions be filled. I just want to make sure I fully understand.
Well, I want to use the word mandated, but it almost like it is, because if we don't fill them, we're going to run into not meeting the state requirement of ensuring, like that financial literacy course. We're obligated by state law now to make sure every student who goes to the high school has an opportunity to take that course. And if we don't have enough teachers to teach it, enough staff, enough sections to fit everybody in, we're in trouble, because then we're not meeting the graduation requirements of the official 25 credits.
Does it take teachers some special accreditation to teach it?
Certain certifications, yes. You have to have specific certification requirements. So like a science teacher who has a science certification, or a let's say an English teacher, English certification, they can't do that. There's only that financial certification, as well as math. There's one other one, the career CTE, yeah, is the other one.
So is there any push to have the rest of the teachers all get that accreditation? If the course itself is mandated, I would think we would want to have as many teachers who'd be able to fill in that spot, instead of then being forced to
Well, if
go out
you
and hire someone.
the problem, you'd have to have teachers go back to school, basically, get a degree and a certification in that field. And I don't think you're going to find, if like an English teacher, for instance, is going to have, we can't force them to go do that. And they're already usually a 1.0.
I would think a math teacher would be able to. pretty
Potentially,
easily.
based on the certificate, but we can't force somebody to go, say, you need to go get that certification, or, you're not going to have a job. If we have a job for them, they have seniority, they bounce other people, that sort of thing. I know where you're kind of going with it, but it's, the world of certifications at the state level is very cumbersome. Now, the state CSDE has done a better job of trying to loosen that some, so we can allow cross endorsements of sort. So folks in certain areas might be able to come over and teach, something else. They did do that a little bit with this financial literacy to help out, but it isn't expanded to the degree that I think you're referencing. Someday, maybe, because there is such a shortage of teachers, still across the state, across the country, and that's why they've relaxed some of those requirements and certifications.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump on your question.
No, it's a good question.
Okay. Hi, I have a couple questions, thanks. So coaches and para-educators, just so I understand the terminology, are coaches a subset of the para-educators?
So, not sports coaches, you're talking instructional coaches?
Yes, I am.
No, they are certified staff members. Paraeducators are not certified.
Okay.
So those are
And they perform two different functions. The
Exactly.
Coaches are basically there to support the teachers' professional development needs, right?
correct. Paraeducators are, and yep, the coaches do it in a greater capacity, providing instructional supports and deliveries.
I think the number you used was 114 paraeducators across the district?
Correct.
And are all of those state mandated, or is there any latitude there to be able to change?
No, I mean, there's, not everyone is a one-to-one with a student. Many of them do other functions. Again, you could have a student who has, again, an individual education plan, doesn't require a one-to-one, but requires some significant supports has dyslexia and needs somebody that provides direct support during the course of the day. Now, that might not have to be a certified teacher. There's where a paraeducator can come in to help support that, because the certified teacher is trying to teach all the other students. But we're mandated through that IEP process, that individualized education plan, to provide extra supports, extra instruction, and a greater level of instruction for students. There's where those paraprofessionals come in.
Right, no, I do understand that. I'm just trying to understand if you have any flexibility in that 114 number.
There was flexibility where we already cut 5 positions out of the Board of Ed, cut 5 positions. We continue to look at every one when somebody leaves. Do we need it? We always ask that, that question. They rotate greatly when it comes to availability, need. That's part of the problem as well. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that, Kim. Kim is our Director of Student Services. That's pretty much.
Yeah, we staff preschool with parents.
Yeah, preschool, that's a good point. Preschool is another big one. We have well over 65, 70 preschool students across our programs. I know these are 3 and 4-year-olds. Diaper changing, sometimes help with toileting. There's a lot that goes into the needs of and just the overall oversight of such young children too. So a majority of our paras are living down in that elementary world and providing supports there.
A different area, please, and that's a high school teacher, a middle school teacher. How many class periods a day do they typically teach, and do they have like a planning period or a duty period?
Yes, yeah, typically 4 or 5. Duty is included, and then they all get a planning period as well.
So 4 or 5 classes per day.
It depends. Yeah,
Plus
it
a
depends.
duty, plus a
In middle school, middle school is different. The middle school is set up in a Kiva style. So you have an Kiva can have 80 to 100 students in the Kiva. You have a core English, core math, core science, core social studies, and a special education teacher that are running that Kiva. Those students stay in that Kiva all day long. So those teachers are teaching those subjects, and the kids rotate between the 4. So they're doing the same subject. So it's different at the middle school versus at the high school.
Right.
Kids are coming and going larger. Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes
thanks
sense.
for making that distinction.
Yeah. Yep.
So then the 4 or 5 classes per day is what I'm interested in. So that seems, how does that compare, say, to other high schools in the area?
Same structure. It's basically a duty and a planning period. Now, I say 4 or 5. There are situations where somebody, like I'll give an instance. We have a teacher who does culinary. Okay, she does the 4 classes. She has a planning, but then her other one is all of the work, groceries, food that needs to go into culinary and prep in the kitchen. She uses that period to go off. She needs to get groceries. She needs to get set up. So we give her an extra time. So there's different pockets of that where you don't have a set 5, but generally it's the 5 classes.
Okay, thanks. And then back to the professional development a bit, if you don't mind. And that is, I heard you talk about sort of the online opportunities as well as the maybe traveling to a conference. How much of professional development is travel to a conference someplace else?
Less than on-site, much less than on-site. Now, it has increased a little bit, but for the most part, our professional development is occurring on-site through a virtual world or that train-the-trainer model that we talked about, where we are training our coaches or certain staff members to then provide additional instruction to teachers or paraprofessionals even as well.
Okay, thanks. And does every teacher in every school have the same ability to travel to, say, a conference or participate in a professional development activity? Is it the same across everybody, or does it rotate and you may have it this year, not next year, or something like that?
So Mrs. Spaziano has a budget that she runs, and we try and equate out, and correct me if I'm wrong, the exact number for each teacher to be able to go on a certain trip. Now that might fluctuate. If we find something that is extremely imperative, that we need to send a teacher to get Wilson trained because it supports dyslexia, I'm just using that as an example, we might need to pull additional dollars to make that happen, if that makes sense. So there is some fluctuation, but we try and allocate the same number of dollars to each certified professional.
So everybody gets something.
And not everybody might use that, but we try and have an allocation of dollars just in case. There's where you have to have, we do it that way because, again, you might have somebody that the cost is more, or a group is going to a specific professional development that we need them to go to, and it's going to cost that much more. So we have those extra dollars to be able to utilize.
And
Let me just make a point on that too. That's important because oftentimes, some of these trainings that we send individuals to might be in the world of, special education. I use the example of, Wilson training, which supports dyslexic students. If we don't train our teachers and give them the opportunities to make sure they are at the cutting edge, we may have parents that could come back and say, "I want my student in this placement, which costs $80,000 because you haven't trained your people to be able to provide the instruction that they can. We're not providing the most appropriate education in that sense." So there are times where we have to make sure that our individuals are up to speed in trainings, just to throw that piece in there.
no, thanks for adding that. IT. What kind of an IT department do you have, and how many people support it?
So we kind of went through this when we presented. No, that's okay. So we currently contract out for IT through what we call custom computers. We are revamping that for next year. So we're bringing IT staff back in district. So we'll have a kind of a head of IT, and then we're going to have two individuals that are kind of our boots on the ground. They're the break fix. They're going to be at two of the schools. One's going to cover the elementaries, one's going to cover the middle school, and then our head IT individual is going to be at the high school and covering the high school. With this reconfiguration, we're saving $41,000. So that's why part of why we did it. I mentioned at the last meeting, our custom contract right now is $399,000. So we're going to save money, in restructuring this. All of our managed services, though, we're still going through, custom computer engineering. We have to make sure that we're using the most up-to-date and most experienced engineering department. We don't have an engineer specifically, so we're still using custom computers. It's worked out very well for us, but we've saved money.
Yeah, thanks for explaining that again. And then my last question is about mentors. Do you have a mentoring program for, say, master teachers to support junior teachers?
We do, yeah. By law, yeah, we have a team. We have to provide mentors to our new teachers, and it's worked out well. There's a whole team mentor program.
Okay. Thank you.
Any follow-up, John?
As far as lunch periods,
Mm-hmm.
you hire aides to monitor the lunch periods?
We hire recess and lunch aides, yes, roughly about $250,000, John. Now, let me explain, that's going away. That's at the elementary level. There are a few at the middle school level as well. But in the new contract that we just established with our certified staff, they are taking on those duties. So we were able to remove that. So we will.
The reason I bring it up, when I went to school many decades ago, lunchtime, the teachers used to be the monitors.
Yes.
But then I see over the years, I didn't realize this was happening, which is a good way to save money.
Yeah, that's where we're
You're
going.
gonna-
Not next year, it's happening the year after as part of the contractual
This is
agreement.
through all the schools, all 5 schools? Or?
So that doesn't happen at the high school. We don't need, usually that's one of the duties that our high school teachers do, that one period that they do duty. This is mostly at the elementary or through elementary schools. That's where you need the most support outside of the room, because they're going out for recess, where kids are outside in the lunchroom, making sure we monitor any choking. God forbid, I'm always concerned about a child choking and that sort of thing. So.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
Okay,
thank you,
yeah,
Mr.
yeah, anything else comes up, we're here.
Okay. So, I guess that would bring us to deliberations, and if, anyone wants to take a position or make a motion to decide whether we want to accept the budget as presented, including the adjustment of the $150,000 insurance, or whether there's anyone who thinks that we could suggest a smaller increase in the budget, in the Board of Ed budget, to help offset some of the taxes that will result. So right now it's at the 64,057,400 minus the 150,000. Assume nobody, I guess we should make a motion to that effect about the 150,000 reduction anyhow, just to incorporate that into the baseline. Does anyone want to make a motion to make the adjustment to the Board of Ed budget as updated by the state, by the 150,000? Can we do that?
I can make a motion. So move to adjust the Board of Education budget by $150,000 per savings in, I believe it was health insurance.
Health insurance.
Health
yeah.
insurance.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion carries 600. I just feel like this way we're working with a baseline number and not constantly trying to back something out. So that puts us 64,057,400 minus 150. So yeah, 63,907,400. All right, does anyone want to make a motion to make any further adjustments to the total number?
You have anything to say? Any adjustments?
Yeah, I was first last year. I guess I might as well be first again this year. Rather than what was proposed as a $4,032,725 increase, which then got offset by that $150,000 for insurance reduction, I'm suggesting increasing the budget by just $1,782,785.
1,782,000. What was the rest?
785.
So, just to be clear, what we're saying is that instead of increasing it the 4,032,725, you are suggesting we increase it by 2,099,940 minus the 150,000. Am I backing that right?
That's what I have for numbers, Jim.
Okay.
Okay.
It's just, yeah, it's a 2.249 million cut is what you're saying, for reduction in the overall increase, right?
Yeah. If you add back in the 150.
Do I have a second? I'll second.
What was, so
now I'm thinking the 150,000 confused us. Sorry.
Okay.
So what's,
Okay, if we go by cuts, okay. So the budget was 64,057,400. I was looking to decrease the 4,032,725 by $2,250,000, so that it ends up being a $1,782,785 increase. So it would bring the total to 61,807,40. 400.
so you want to repeat that again? How much, the decrease, 1,782,785, and that comes off of the 64,057,400.
No. A decrease of 2,250,000
Total.
total, inclusive of the 150.
So Rich, are you looking, is your number 61,807,460?
Yep.
Okay, yep, so this is 61,807,460.
And that is, I believe, the number that I seconded. So, the motion has been made and seconded. We're now,
So to be clear on the figures, would you repeat them?
so this would bring the budget from the current 2024-2025 of 60,024,675 to 61,807,400.
I'm off $60.
Am I correct there?
So that's the Board of Ed budget you're talking about.
Yes. Rich, did I capture that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
just want to make sure.
I'm off $100.
So, any discussion?
Can I just ask Rich, what sorts of things am I allowed to ask? What sorts of,
Well, we can't specifically say this is what we think should be cut. But I think there's can be a general feeling of, I'm focusing on, this aspect of your budget, but it's, we still have, we could say, we think you should cut out all the sports, and that's why we came up with 61 million. And then the Board of Ed would go back and say, we have to cut X amount, but they could come up with a completely different way to do it. Does that make sense?
well, maybe I can rephrase my question, let me know if it's okay. And that is, can you just let us know what you were thinking in arriving at that number?
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. I was thinking in terms of limiting the new hires to the business need that you have. The software, I was thinking, could be reduced somewhat. The Zoom contract, it seemed as though, I don't know how often you get 1,000 people for that one contract, or the 77 licenses, or the 100 licenses at $77 a license. I don't know how many licenses you need to have. It seems like you could have concurrent licenses or shared licenses that would reduce that number. Again, I'm not allowed to do line item things, but these were just some of the things I was thinking of. This is something I'm going to ask the town side to do as well. You had mentioned we have 20 administrators. I think
17.5.
17.5, okay. I saw that the increase for the administrator's salaries was 113,000. I was thinking to be in solidarity with trying to help the community make it through these tough times. Maybe this year pass up on those increases. And I'm going to ask the same of the town's department heads as they're non-affiliated. I'm going to ask the Board of Selectmen to forego the $10,000 this year, and for the first selectman to forego his raise this year. These are tough times, and I don't like doing this. Mileage, you know, I don't really see where it needs to keep getting covered. The coaches and the ARPA positions, and then there was discussion during the presentation of the Coastal Connection program being discontinued, and that Pathways has picked up the pieces for that. And I asked about the savings for the Coastal Connections, and I believe you'd mentioned $400,000, which we've never seen realized. So those are just a few things, Scott, and it pains me to do this because I had been on the school board. But the increases that we're seeing are unsustainable. We can't keep doing that. You know, I remember when I first got on the Board of Ed, or on the Board of Finance, I was fighting for more for the Board of Ed, and had fought for taking $900,000 from the undesignated fund balance to help get those computers started during the pandemic. It's especially painful because I just read that Linda McMahon kind of terminated the ESSER grants for Connecticut. And, you know, I just don't know how things are going to go forward. But we also have a community that can't really do a $3 million increase in taxes. And we're going to be looking hard at the town budget too, to try to, you know, alleviate that burden. And I know it's not fiscally responsible, but I think we need to ask for more from the fund balance this year as well. And also, I'll preview some things, but on the town side, where we've got a strategy where we're going for more cash payment instead of bonding, maybe this isn't the year to increase it. Maybe just stay where we were at. Does that help, Scott?
Yeah, thanks for clarifying.
And thank you, Rich, for being the first to put your hand up, because it's always, you know, it's tough to get this conversation going. Nobody wants to come out and say anything, but I wonder just, Kevin, if you could put up on the screen maybe what the total town picture would look like as it stands right now with Rich's proposed.
So there's two housekeeping items I was hoping to just talk about. We can add 120,000 for tuition,
Okay.
and then there's also 37,000 we can add to.
So this is a new number
These are two new
regarding
numbers.
Salem?
Yep. So if we can add these two,
Okay, thank you.
does that work for the board?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. So if someone can, do you want to do one at a time here? So this is the miscellaneous finance office revenue. Or do you want to
Wait.
delete these and then look at the number?
So, so this is for the town side, not just.
Well, this is just
okay.
general fund revenues.
Okay, yes.
So if
Right.
it just it paints a clearer
Clear
picture if we
picture of
put
the
these
whole-
two
yes.
in.
Yes, okay. So this was,
All right. So
got that.
all right. So if we put that in, the 37, and then the 120 for tuition revenue, which we'll vote on later, 1.59 mil increase.
And in terms of, total expenditures, the percentages?
5.5 million, we're up 6.1%.
Right?
Some things we can look at, the tax collection year to date, we've collected 98.75, and that's pretty consistent. Last year we collected 99.2, year before that was 99.1. So our current collection rate is 98.75. It's making things a lot tighter, but I think, we could squeeze out another quarter and see what that does to the mill rate.
To the 99?
So if we just, so it jumps it, what was that, 0.7 of a mil? Yeah. So just something to think about.
700.
So it drops about 0.25%.
Okay.
So I'll just revert that back because we can make that change.
All right. Is there any further discussion on Rich's motion?
And the other thing I would say from my perspective is I'm struck by the class sizes, I guess, and wondering how much flexibility there is to be able to bump them up a little bit without doing too much harm to teacher satisfaction and retention as well as student performance. I'm not an educator, so I don't know the answer to that, but I'm hoping that you guys do.
I'm happy to share some thoughts. I don't want to.
Sure, Jim.
Just broadly speaking, with a reduction of that size, we have to turn to staff. That's where that money is. That's an enormous number. You'd be looking at probably over 20 staffing positions across the district cut. What we have for retirements, very small. So the rest of individuals will be losing their jobs, having to go elsewhere. Staffing class size numbers, with the reduction, again, we would have to look again across all the schools, but you're going to significantly raise class sizes, high school, elementary. Middle school is already fairly they're on the higher end. They're between that 21 to 24 students in a class. There's rooms that can't fit any more kids, so we really wouldn't be able to touch the middle school necessarily. It would be elementary and high school you'd have to look at, just to give a little perspective, if that helps.
Thank you.
Any other comments on that? And, then just what we can do is vote on that motion and then entertain, if it passes, go forward. If it doesn't pass, entertain any other motions. So, and I have to say, this is a tough one for me too. My focus has really been, we need to get this number down, and I think the most opportunity is at the high school level. Those where the low class sizes are, and I do really appreciate Rich's insight, from his Board of Ed, but I do think it's important also to have the smaller class sizes at the elementary schools. So with that, all those in favor of Rich's motion to adjust the balance to $61,807,400 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So the motion doesn't carry. Boy.
I'd like to make a motion to reduce by $1,350,000. So we have a total of 1.5 million with the health insurance reduction.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. I didn't do the vote on the four because I was just thinking it's been so long. The vote, you know, saying it was 2-4-0 or whatever. Because I don't think, and it's been years since we really haven't had a unanimous vote up here. So I just not used to like coming up with a no before. You know? Anyhow, so the motion has been made and seconded, and just to reduce the proposed budget balance by $1,350,000 plus the $150 from the insurance for a total reduction from $64,057,400
Yes.
minus
Yes.
$1,500,000. So, what does that look like?
$7%.
May I ask, what does that wind up for the school budget?
School budget ends up at $62,557,400.
So a 4.32% increase. And a $2,532,725 increase in the budget from last year. So the motion has been made and seconded.
Who seconded it?
Hmm?
Who seconded? I didn't hear a second.
John.
John.
Dave John.
John.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those against? Nay. So that motion carries 5-1. Thank you. And again, I know you guys can do it. I know you'll put your heads together and figure out a way. All right, so it's time, and plenty of time to move on to the rest of the town budget deliberations. Just quickly, Kevin.
Yep.
Do we need to, before everybody at the Board of Ed leaves, do we need to do anything more on the Board of Ed capital
And that's up to the,
in terms of formally voting on that?
I think at the end of your deliberations, you're gonna have to approve the entire CIP
Okay,
package.
so we don't need to do that separately here.
Yep, all
I
in
don't think
one
there
school.
was anything. Okay. Okay. So I guess first would be the first selectmen's budget.
Do you wanna do the revenue
Oh,
first? Just
okay.
just get those two out of the way so we don't
Sure.
forget about them?
Yep. Okay, so next will be the revenue budget.
It's in the very front end. So, in discussions with Mary and Stevens at the Board of Ed, there was a few changes with student numbers, and she felt comfortable adding $120,000 to bring the new total to $3,085,560. Can you guys see that? Can only zoom in so far.
Can you move the cursor to where the figure is?
This yellow dot.
Oh, okay.
So let me just scroll it over.
I have to say that the print is so light here.
Your cursor's right on the number.
Yeah.
Is that below it?
No, the yellow. See the yellow
Yeah,
right here? So this is the amount,
308,555.
3,085,560.
Well, if Mary Ann is comfortable with that, I'm comfortable with that. Everybody good there? Okay. Any other adjustments to revenue other than?
I think you guys actually have to vote on that.
Okay. Anyone want to make a motion to increase the tuition other districts revenue number from 2,965,560 by 120,000 to 3,085,560?
So moved.
A second.
Great numbers.
What's it good?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. That motion carries. 600.
Next one, miscellaneous finance department revenue.
Okay. And so, I know you told us what this was the other night, and I'm sorry, I forgot.
That's fine. This is cell tower space
right.
rentals.
Yep.
So we get a base rate of like $2,500, and then for every cell carrier that's on that tower, we get 25%. So just yesterday we got an email. It's up to $7,300 a month.
Yep.
So it's about $87,600. So they have escalators in their contract. So 87,000 is probably pretty.
All right, so would anyone like to increase the miscellaneous finance department budget, revenue budget from 50,000 to 87,600, an increase of 37,600?
So moved.
Second.
Second, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Motion carries 600. Anything else in revenue that's been?
That's all I had.
Okay.
All right, let's run to the top here.
So now on to the first selectman budget.
You probably won't hear about the final numbers from the state until May, next month.
For the grants?
Yeah, or any of the educational.
Yeah, we'll have enough time after the public hearing. I think they come out right before the public hearing, so we'll be able to make any changes before we submit it to the voters,
Yep.
residents, citizens. For each of us.
Okay, so did anyone want to make any adjustments to the first selectman budget? Rich?
Yeah, as I had previewed, I would like to make a motion to keep the first selectman salary at $116,428, and to eliminate the $10,434 stipend to the Board of Selectmen for this year.
Do I have a second? I'll second, just so we can have a discussion. Anyone have any thoughts that they? Yep.
So just as a general principle, I guess I don't understand why only one individual here is being carved out to not get a cost of living increase. I think that in my opinion, this particular individual has done a good job, and I would like to recognize that. So I will probably vote against this.
Can I respond?
Sure.
It's not the one individual, and I agree with you that our first selectman has done an incredible job. What I had previewed during the Board of Education discussion was that as a sign of solidarity with our taxpayers and with our town, that department heads forego their raises this year. And just the department heads that are in excess of $100,000, like for the Youth and Family Services and for the Aging Commission, they're well below 100,000. So I don't know if it's a foolish idea or it's just something I thought I would try bouncing, and if it's no go, I'm fine with that as well.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, could we kind of break that out, just because, what exactly does the Board of Selectmen, the 10,000, what does that entail? Do they each?
They get a stipend
Okay, so
every
that's,
month.
but,
$1,200.
so a small stipend
Yeah,
for the,
it's 200 and something.
Yeah, I think it's, I'm just pulling it up now.
Yeah.
I just turned that just so it was away from
Oh, okay.
So it's 10,000. I believe the deputy first selectman gets a smidge more, maybe $100. I'll find out about 10 seconds. I'm just gonna take a second just to fire up.
Mhm. Okay. And just for the record, nobody up here gets anything.
We don't get a property tax bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, the first selectman then is a full-time job, as opposed to the Board of Selectmen, which is
They have
a
a lot more
volunteer,
meetings.
part-time.
That's, my only concern is that I mean, other than the first selectman on the other, the town head can go somewhere else, and we want to keep the positions. It's a small, based on inflation the past few years, I think it's a reasonable amount. Just my thoughts on it.
I just think that's while it's a noble idea that, you know, the leader not have an increase, I think it sets a precedent that I wouldn't be in favor of, and I think it makes it less good for someone to even want to take a job like this in leadership.
I tend to agree. I think I appreciate Rich's diligence in going through the budget and starting these difficult conversations, but I do worry about our ability to retain talent at the town level if we were to consistently make cuts.
You know, and I think if we, instead of looking at it as a total number, if we looked at it as how many hours Dan has put in, you know, I think he's making about 5 cents an hour here. So,
Denise, can I withdraw the motion?
absolutely.
Okay. I just wanted to throw that out there because I shouldn't read the comments in the newspaper, but I do. And there's a selective set of people that don't realize how much our city officials do.
Yeah, I agree. And again, Dan, I think we've had the right man for the job over to deal with all the challenges over this past time, and I really appreciate everything that you've done and frankly our good working relationship.
Thank you.
I do have one question though, on the line item of the grant writer. That disappeared for this next year. Did we ever hire somebody this last year for that part-time position, and did we get any results?
We didn't have,
Spending freeze.
pardon me?
That is hiring freeze.
Hiring freeze?
Yeah, hiring
Oh,
freeze.
okay. Okay.
although we've had some success with people in the town that have taken the initiative, Alex Close for one, and Dan Cleary for another, and there are others, Sarah Furman, and so we seem to be managing. I know we could there's probably more money out there we could get if we had a grant writer, but I think we have to rely on self-help for right now. But it's an important focus.
Okay. And I know I had made this suggestion last year when the grant writer was proposed, but I remember from my days in library services, there are very good databases for grants, and I don't know if the library has any bandwidth within their current schema of things. I know they're running 90 to nothing, but perhaps that could be another resource to help people learn how to look for grants.
I mean, any suggestions are appreciated, and but more and more, the more success we have, the more we realize what a great avenue that is if we can perfect it. And we've had some success. Hopefully, that will keep going. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
So I just want to say, selectmen make $154 a month, and the deputy makes $274. So they get paid monthly.
Yeah.
All right, Rich, did you want to withdraw the notion as it pertained to the Board of Selectmen as well?
Yeah, across the board for
Okay.
everything.
All right.
Thank you.
No, thank you. It's good that we think about things. Does anyone have anything else for the first Selectmen's budget?
Kevin, what's the present increase for the Board of Selectmen?
2.75, like other departments.
I mean, excuse me, town operations, the total time. Because it was 11.2.
We haven't cut anything, so we're still 11.2 on the town side.
Okay.
Okay. So, on to assessor.
I don't have anything.
I didn't have anything here. Anyone else with assessor? No?
Am I misremembering? Isn't there a card for the assessor?
That was in the capital budget,
That's
and
not
that was
that.
removed. Yep.
Thank you.
Good memory now. Okay, so all set with the assessors?
Mind if we stand at the podium? I have a little.
Oh, sure. I know, you're just pushing for the new chairs,
It's-
aren't you?
No, the chairs, they were designed by a chiropractor for
Yeah, right.
So you'd have to use them.
Dan, I'll say sorry because I know you wanted to go get a chair for public safety.
No,
that's
chiropractors out there.
It's been a long day of sitting.
Yeah. Okay, so on to the assessor's office. I don't have anything there. Does anyone have anything?
No,
Tax collector.
And the tax collector and town clerk are going to be they're no longer an elected position, I believe, after the next election.
Correct.
So
That's correct.
So I guess you will, well, in that case, it'll be a negotiation between I don't know how that's going to be handled.
Yeah, I'm not. We've come up with a process, and we're going to be following to determine who's going to fill those positions. And I don't want to make any assumptions on the record till we do that.
Okay, so then this dollar amount for the tax collector presumably
Is the current elected
it's the current,
salary.
right, and so then that position will be up for election in November.
So
No.
after December 4th, I think it is,
It'll
that
be-
position will become an appointed position, the tax collector and town clerk.
Okay, appointed, not
Cor-
elected.
Correct,
Right,
yeah.
okay.
And so there's a civil
Alright.
service examination and interview process that is going to happen in the next couple months.
Okay, that's
Those
right.
two
And we've been
positions.
working on that process, and we've come up with,
Yeah.
we're gonna have a panel, try to do it the right way.
Yeah, got it.
Yep.
Okay, anything else for tax collector?
Just, I believe there's a placeholder for now, so we'll
Yeah.
move down the road.
Okay, and on to building, 104. Total 1.56% increase. I didn't have anything there. Nope. Town engineer, that tab, the 105, that was zeroed out, right?
Correct, that's merged with Public Works.
Yeah. And so then on to human resources. I didn't have anything there.
I'm just wondering, we went from a human resources director to a manager, and now we've gone back to a director again. And so this position reports into the first selectman rather than finance now.
To the big guy.
Okay. Was
And just to
there-
be clear, it never reported to finance.
Oh.
I'll put that on the record.
So it was, the position was a manager position, and Stacy reported to me, and then we promoted her to director,
Okay.
yeah, after a year.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, anything else for human resources? Nope. On to town clerk. This would be a similar to the assessor.
There is an error identified in the town clerk's budget. So the assistant town clerk is in the UPSU union. So we can reduce, we already carry contingency on the UPSU and the personnel contingency. So if we want, we can reduce the assistant town clerk's salary back to the $58,695. I know it's, $2,000, but still
But
every
it
bit
would-
counts.
I'd rather be consistent with the
Right.
way. Would anyone like to make a motion to reduce the assistant town clerk's salary line from $60,309 back to $58,695, with the idea that any potential would be covered in the contingency?
I'll make that a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Oh, no.
Okay. So that motion carries 5-1.
That one.
Anything else under?
So we're done with the meeting after.
I'm trying to look on my phone here. I don't. Let me just give me 1 second just to look up and see if there's a meeting.
Are you guys here for another meeting?
Is this the one in the Lions Commission?
Right
Oh,
now,
boy.
it's the Board of Finance meeting. Does it?
We had the same problem last year, so
Yeah.
we had the vacation.
Sure.
Sure.
Public meeting?
You're public.
What was the room? You're checking to see whether the room was reserved?
I'm just seeing where their if their meeting is here or in the other room.
Okay.
It says conference room 1.
Okay, which is over there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think you guys are in,
Do you know where that is? Just right across the house.
like, welcome to stay for finance.
They're in conference room 1.
Good.
Okay, thanks, Jerry. Okay, so
Oh, sorry. Okay.
nothing else for town clerk? Okay, on to Ledgely Health District.
Harry was thinking we're getting like a mob or something. You know? Got nervous. My back's to the door.
like. And on to information technology. So this one, I know I had sort of a question on the miscellaneous town supplies. Did we, when we were going through IT, did we have
So we
some
moved.
opportunity there to?
Yeah, so we moved 35,000. Well, originally, Dan Clear, IT director, proposed 35,000 in the CIP for replacement of computers, and that would be on a 35,000 would be, I think, is a 5 or 7 year replacement cycle for computers. Sorry. And so, in conversations with him, we said, okay, well, you already use about 8,000 a year. What if we did an offer and compromise and brought you close to that 35? So that's inclusive of, their office supplies, but also, computer screens besides just the replacement program, monitors, things like that. So.
All right, so you didn't see any opportunity to reduce that miscellaneous supply number there?
I think there's, depends on who you ask. Dan's a friend of mine, so I'll abstain from the comments.
You know.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So, and Kevin, I think you'll know this, the 14.9% increase on the top line in the non-union wages. I know we talked about it, but can you just remind me how they got to that big number?
Yep, so in the prior year, we only budgeted 4 months, July, August, September, October. We budgeted 4 months last year of the third IT position. And this upcoming year, we have to fund the whole 12 months. So while it looks like it's a 15% jump, we hired the third the IT engineer for public safety. We hired in November. So we only budgeted for, like half a year for that position. Now we have to fund that position for the whole year. Right, so we only budgeted, last year we budgeted, I think, like 40 or 45,000 for that position.
So that 14.9% increase basically is wholly accounted for by
Is now
the
accounting 3
fact
full-time
that
equivalents.
We're now having the full year's budget.
Correct,
There's
3
not
full-time
like-
equivalents.
There's not like an increase in salary of any of those people anywhere close to that.
Nope, everyone's 275 flat. And so I do have a worksheet here. I think I've prepared this. It might be in your budget. I got rid of everyone's name, so it's just the positions. So you can see everyone across the board, with the exception of the promotion for the HR director. And I think the two the chief and the fire chief. I'm getting nervous now.
That's because the hours went up on the fire.
Correct. This should be.
Yeah.
Up to 40 hour.
I didn't make that adjustment. I got to change that. But this should be a little higher to reflect the. They're not getting a GWI. They foregone a GWI or foregoed GWI. Forwent, something like that.
I think
Okay.
that's it. Forgot.
And so they're going from 37 and a half hours to 40 hours, like every other public safety employee.
Okay. All right, thanks for the clarification.
Yep.
So, Kevin, on that line 51618,
Roger.
Other departments, we have the director on a separate line and then the other employees below it. Is it possible in the future to kind of have the different?
So now that we're
Positions.
going to the uniform chart of accounts from the state of Connecticut, you're going to see a push in a lot of these departments to either say non-union wages, union wages, part-time, seasonal, right? So the state of Connecticut actually has a set of accounts they want all municipalities to follow, right? So in an effort to judge us across and make it easier to kind of compare the towns. So that's why you see this new accounting structure we have. That's based on the state of Connecticut. So in most departments, you'll see now this non-union. It still might say, like, for instance, in the town clerk, it said, town clerk, assistant town clerk. In our budgeting or actual software, it says non-union wages, union wages.
Okay,
Right.
that's fine. And so all of all 3 people are non-union.
Correct.
in that.
Yep.
Okay.
One more, if you don't mind. On line 53523, the other IT services town, on the explanation page, it says this covers end user and staff security training. If that number were lower, if that $116,000 was a lower number, what kind of an impact do you think that would have?
Let's take a look and see what the breakdown is there. So the detailed breakdown, that's the $116,000 line?
Yep.
All right. So here's our breakdown for that line. So let me zoom in. I know it's tough to see. Dan, you can't get any closer.
It's good, I'm good.
Okay, so we can see right from the top, there's some replacement equipment for $3,400. There's the internal IT training for their staff, $3,600. End user cybersecurity training for $4,000. Secure transfer certificates, I have no idea what that means. Link from Town Hall to Nyack Fire, that's a yearly, just we pay it once a year for the dark fiber. Communication services, that got moved from the emergency operations budget, as well as the $41,000 for the utility communications contract. So we have Everbridge. I'm just trying to see what is kind of discretionary. I guess the 3,400, that first line. Sorry, Dan. The first line I would imagine is probably discretionary. I can't speak to any of the other things. They look awfully public safety-ish. So I would say the first two lines. I know the third line, the No Before software, we just rolled that out for user training. So I mean, 3, 6, 7, 8, yeah, $7,000 on line, kind of discretionary.
All right. Yeah. Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah, no problem. I guess there's also, just so it's on the record, the camera maintenance for the $5,200 there, and then the town radio maintenance, and maybe the phone maintenance. Those might be, I don't believe they're contract based. I think those might be, something breaks, we put in for it, and that's $5,000, $2,000. So, maybe $14,000 in that line. It's kind of can float around. Just a thought.
Did you want to make any kind of motion?
Well, the reason I was asking the question is I'm just sort of thinking, because this is a 37.82% increase in their budget from the previous year, and, we did ask the school board to cut back quite a bit. It just seems fair to apply a reduction when the numbers go that high, and I'm just trying to figure out where to cut, and from this, it doesn't seem like it's super clear, and I don't want to be irresponsible and propose a cut that could impact public safety. So I was kind of relying on you to guide us. It sounds like there may be a modest reduction possible here.
Yeah, I mean,
That
maybe that
wouldn't impact
first
public
line.
safety. Have I got that right?
Well, this has an additional $70,000 that was moved in from, one of the
For
notes
the
I
body
have,
cam.
it was
Right.
70,000 was moved into this from,
So a lot of this, the 26,000 was moved in, and the 40,000. So right there is $67,000 of the 70. Just those two line items right there. That telephone line moved over, and so did that 41 utility communications
so
line.
previously in the emergency management budget.
Correct.
Right, so sort of in the same way we looked at the police budget that had a lot of noise in it.
Yep.
If those two numbers hadn't moved over here,
Right.
then the total increase in this
Just
budget
Wouldn't
would
be
have
30.
been. This is the tricky part about municipal finance budgeting is lots of times things move from one department to another department, or, the name changes or what have you, so it's like trying to pull the threads and find out what the number really used to be and what really changed can be.
Sometimes the percentages don't really tell the story,
Yeah.
and you have to understand the background. Thankfully, Kevin is very adept at giving us that background.
Yeah, so if we take those two that were moved out, And there was a few more, like that 5,400 was also moved over, the trunk services. But just those two, it's about a 11% increase with those removed.
And I think this has been sort of a concerted effort to, instead of having all these little things buried in all the different budgets, like we didn't really have a robust IT department until really,
We had an IT director.
yeah. So he's starting to kind of take control of all of these things so that the different departments don't, you know, have to. He's managing it more efficiently now.
I don't want to speak for Dan, but the replacement equipment there for the $3,400, the top line, you know, maybe we just tell him that that has to come out of that miscellaneous supplies, the 34,000, if something breaks, because that's really what that's for. If a piece of hardware breaks, right? So that's kind of that miscellaneous supply
It's an
line.
if
So,
then.
I mean, that could be, you know,
That's a,
that still helps.
yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds like a,
Reasonable
yeah.
accommodation.
Scott, wanna make that motion?
Okay, so I will move that the road 27 replacement equipment for $3,400 be reduced from this budget. Just in the spirit of what Rich was talking about earlier, that these cuts can't just impact one department, they should impact multiple departments. Okay, that seems fair, especially if you think there's a workaround.
Yeah, I think this 34,800 right here, he'd be able to, you know, float that in there. If something breaks.
Yep. Okay, so, did we have a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, the motion carries 600.
Just as an aside, while we're still on IT, I did attend today a cybersecurity presentation by the state of Connecticut. It's a never-ending battle. I mean, as soon as we get ahead of the cyber thieves, they're on our trail. But I was able to get for free a cybersecurity analysis that will be done by the state of Connecticut. So they'll come in here and they'll won't cost us anything. They'll give us an analysis of where we stand.
Well, that'd be great.
Wow.
Thank you. Help us pay those toll bills that I keep getting the text about.
Oh, we were talking about that. Actually, that came up.
You're not supposed to pay those.
Yeah.
Leave them alone.
Until you don't pay the real one. Right.
Okay. So, any other changes there? Nope.
Could you repeat the amount of that reduction, please?
3,400.
Oh, okay.
The new total for that line, Rich, is 113,263.
Okay.
Okay. So, on to registrars. And the only question I had was on the election day expenses. I don't know whether,
That's for a lot of that's early voting.
okay.
So I'm going to pull it up real quick here.
And I was just thinking, you know, where things might end up, you know, whether it goes to, whether the,
Referendum.
well, no, I was just thinking whether the whole, however many 10 days of early voting, if that changes at all.
So if that does change, we currently have budgeted for 14 days of early voting. Or 10 days, I'm sorry, even though it says 14, it's, oh no, it is 14. Okay, yeah, 14 days of early voting at $26,000. So what we could do is, if we don't think this is going to happen, we could move this money to contingency, right? And then if it does actually happen, we have early voting, we can move it back. Just as long as we all remember that.
Yeah.
So just a thought.
Yeah. Does anyone have any update on where we stand on that?
I heard a discussion that there is an interest in continuing to use early voting at the state legislature level. And if anything, I thought that the numbers that voted in the last election in November were, people were enthusiastic about that because it got more people to the polls. And so I think there was interest in continuing it, was all I heard.
So I think this year, I mean, it's municipal elections, which you probably wouldn't.
Yeah.
I don't anticipate primaries usually in the even years. You know, there's the Democrat and Republican primaries for the state positions, but
Yeah,
I don't know if we'd have that. But did they get the new machines this year, or
Not yet.
no?
We did, Dan, you signed something for that, right?
Yeah, we don't have them yet.
Because if they get those, then you'll have to have training for those, I'm sure.
So do we have any state rep or state senator that would be up for election?
I think it's just a municipal.
Yeah, if it's just municipal, I can't see us
Yeah.
having 2 weeks of early voting.
I don't know what they do with the state of Connecticut. Oh yeah, it's 2 solid weeks of early voting.
Yeah, we'd have the early voting. We just wouldn't have any primaries of it.
And the early voting
I can't remember.
numbers would be way down
Right.
because
You ever seen a
municipal
primary in
elections
town,
generally don't
John?
draw that big of a turnout.
Yeah.
Correct.
John, you ever seen a primary in the
I think
municipal
we should put
election
it in
town?
contingency.
I think what you suggested, Kevin, sounds good. Move it into contingency, just in case we do actually need it. But I would agree from the discussion up here, I don't really see where we're going to need it. Unless
Okay.
I'm grossly mistaken.
So
I mean, I think if they were to do it just for municipal elections, I would think they should just do it here at Town Hall.
we do have, I mean, so we'll know more in the next month or so, right? As
Yeah.
things from the state start shaping up. There could also be grant money. I know last year we did receive some grant money for early voting, but it was like $7,000. Didn't really impact the 28,000 that we spent.
Yeah.
So.
I'd make a motion to move the 23,900 to contingency,
I have 26,400.
26,400. Okay. Just
Second.
assumed 26,400.
Can I just ask, so you said it could be moved back in case early voting does indeed occur.
Yep.
What if it doesn't occur? Then what happens to that 26,400?
Rolls in a fund balance at year end. If it's not spent on, another project or something.
Okay, thanks.
So 26,400.
Okay, so did we vote yet?
Did not.
No.
The motion has been made and seconded, and discussion took place. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No, the motion carries 6-0. Anything else for the registrars? Right, you know what, we need to update the registrars to put the information about the budget referendum up on the website. Sad, 'cause it doesn't say anything on there about it. Judge of probate, I don't have anything there. Anything you want to say? Good there.
The majority of that increase, just so everyone knows, the 16%, was really driven by HVAC and all the contracts for that building. Things are going up a little higher than we were anticipating, and I think we just pumped the septic back up over there, and that was like almost $1,000. So little things like that just pop up. It's so it's more the building maintenance that's driving that line.
Now,
Since you-
since the probate judge serves several different communities, for things like that, that's regional.
It's per capita.
Okay.
So the whole amount was say $60,000.
Gotcha.
And then it's broken out by the 4 towns: Montville, Old Lyme, Salem, and East Lyme.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So they pay a share.
Correct. Yep. It's based on the number of residents.
Okay, so then maintenance of town buildings. You know, the one thing that I was just, electricity, there's been that talk that perhaps the public service benefits might go away, because that's what's really driving the 34% increase in the town electricity costs. But I don't think we've seen any update on that either. So,
Still a question mark.
Last I was reading, it sounded like they were going to rename it something else
oh,
and
that's,
try to pass it through Pura, but under a different name, not under the public safety, slide under like the delivery charges or something. So that's something we can kind of just keep our eyes on
yeah.
as we get, as
Maybe closer.
we get closer. Yeah,
Okay. Are you keeping track of the things we're keeping an eye on?
that's the only one I got so far. What was the other one?
Registrar voters.
Oh yeah, early voting. Yeah.
So anyone have anything else for maintenance of town buildings? Okay. General government, miscellaneous benefits.
Right. Do we want to touch that at the end? Because that really changes based on what happens with staffing.
Okay. Right, like, because that would influence health and dental.
Correct.
And, yeah.
And also FICA,
We have
right?
to make a change to healthcare here to, this is at 11, correct?
Correct, yeah, just to bring it down to the
Bring
9. Yep. So that'll be a nice line we can shave some off.
Okay.
What's labor PS 53027?
Labor Public Safety, that's our legal attorney.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Services, on services to community, or did historic properties sneak in there? Services
I
to
got
community.
services nice, yeah. I'll provide the breakout, hold on one
I
second.
think we had quite the conversation about it the other night. Does anyone have anything they want to change there?
Can I just add that I did reach out to Waterford, and so Waterford provided us their breakdown. Their breakdown is similar to what we do with our services, the community line, but it also adds in the regional services, that $45,000 line, right here. This line right here, the CCOG CCM line. A lot of those regional memberships are on here, like the CCOG for 10,000, same line there. They pay a lot more to seat than we do. We pay like 9,000. They pay 40. I don't know what that's about. And New London Hospitality Shelter, they kick in 15. So we share a lot of the same memberships.
Yeah. But we put the memberships in the area where they most
Yeah.
influence, as opposed to.
Yep.
So I mean, if I'm being consistent, this goes against the grain of my soul, I have to say, but this is a 23% increase in charitable contributions, which of course is in so many ways the right thing to do, but in a difficult budget year, should this have a 23% increase while other departments are not able to have that?
And I'm not sure 23% is right, because some of the donations got moved to a more appropriate spot, like the veterans, so it would actually be a lot higher if they hadn't reallocated them to a couple of other lines. See where it says like to historic and for selectmen.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. So I mean, if we're gonna do the same thing to this group that we've done to the others when it was discretionary, feels like the magnitude of the increase should be more modest. And so I guess I'll just say that instead of 25,000, which is the figure,
Mhm.
can we just go to 22,500? And I'll move that we reduce it to 22,500 and then
ask the first
Yeah.
selectman to make.
to decide how to allocate that.
I'll second that, so we can have a discussion.
So what's the motion, to reduce the 25,000 to,
22.5.
22.5.
okay. I'm against it, reducing it. I'm gonna leave it at 25,000.
Anyone have any other? This is something I've always kind of felt like we're taxing our residents so that we can make donations to charitable organizations, and I just feel like, we
We've got two-
we have a lot of great volunteers in this town, and a lot of great people that are willing to donate directly, and having it come through us so that we can tax people to do it. I agree, Scott, with the Board of Ed walked out of here tonight with some sad faces, and I think you make a good point. There's so many areas of the budget that we just don't control because of collective bargaining, costs out of our control, that I do think that everyone's free to write a check and get the tax deduction themselves, so.
Well, my question would be, if you're gonna reduce it by 22.50, who are you gonna reduce on that list by that amount?
I guess my thought was, so I don't know the quality of these individual places, and I don't propose that we decide that. Just that the first selectman maybe take that 2250 and reduce all of them by a tiny amount in order to add up to it. That's I guess what I'm suggesting. And I struggle with this too, because I'd love to be able to give to everybody. However, I'm just trying to. It's my first year ever doing this, and I'm just trying to apply this principle of equity across these different budget items that we're facing, and this is a modest amount. It's not going to make or break the town's budget or the mill rate, I suspect, but I think it just sort of gives us credibility. If we try to reduce others, we're reducing this one too.
So the so essentially it's a 10% cut. So that would mean, just one of the proposals, unless it goes back to the Board of Selectmen or Dan makes a decision, but if it's just a straight cut for everyone, 10%, the column L would be what it would look like. So individuals that are getting 2,000 are getting 1,800. People that are getting 5,000 are getting 4,500.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I agree with the discussion, and I too, I think last year was when we really brought up the dilemma of taxing our citizens to give to charitable donations, and especially in light of what the Board of Ed went through tonight, I agree of a reduction on this, and I think going forward, there are certain of these organizations that really do provide services that our town can't, and that our town utilizes to a significant extent. And those I think we need to support They aren't necessarily a charitable giving. It's something where our youth and family human services can't take care of. So we're getting more bang for the buck by giving a contribution to some of these. And again, I would like to stress, I think we really need to consider things like food insecurity and shelter as the most important items to support going forward. But I think for the time being, the 10% off of all of them is probably the easiest thing to do. Whether it's the right thing to do, I don't know.
Okay, so we have the motion that has been made and seconded to reduce the overall budget by $2,500.
So 10%.
And did we want to say 10% for everyone, or leave that to the discretion of the Board of Selectmen?
I'd like to leave it to them, but I think the way that Kevin has written it out makes good sense.
Okay, so with the recommendation to. Okay, motion's been made, seconded, and clarified. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
One? Everybody saw the motion.
I was in favor of my own motion.
So,
Is it 6, 5?
5-1.
5-1.
Right. Okay.
And just so I'm clear, so you did the 10% for each line item, so we
We
don't,
made that recommendation. If the Board of Selectmen wanted to do something else. you
we
know,
would have that discretion.
Yes.
Otherwise, we could just accept that recommendation.
Yes.
Thank you.
So where are we now?
Yes,
Next we have zoning.
Zoning.
I know they just want to evaluate the time right now. I don't know how much longer everybody wants to go, but
Yeah.
I can't sit here much longer.
Okay, so yeah, we've been sitting here 2 hours.
Into historic properties.
Sure, we can do historic properties. That would be timely. Okay. So, and then I think that means we'll have a short meeting on next Monday. It shouldn't take us long to hammer out the rest, if we want to call it after that. Okay.
Oh, I forgot Jerry's here too.
What do you-
Oh, right.
Sorry, Jerry, you were on.
Do you want to take a break, walk around, or would you rather just, I get these chairs are hard.
I don't care, whatever the board wants.
Any preferences? Paul, you're,
No, it's however everybody else feels.
I don't care, either way.
you know, I don't mind moving on if the thought that we might actually get through, or if you don't think we're going to get through, maybe we do
We're
historic.
not gonna get through all
We're
of
not
this.
going to get through
Yeah.
it.
So maybe we do historic and Parks and Rec, and then call it a night. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
And if anyone has any questions, just let me know and I'll provide whatever I can for our next meeting.
Yeah. Okay. So, historic properties, we're just looking at,
421.
yep. Does anyone have any? Maintenance. I don't have any changes to that. Anyone else? No? So I guess we're good with historic properties. And thank you for what you do. Okay, so let's move to Parks and Rec, which is towards the back, 421.
So remember we were talking about the union versus non-union?
Mm.
You can see up top, we started with that non-union payroll. We're starting to switch that over.
And so I think the big changes here, or big impact here, was the part-time seasonal labor and the maintenance payroll. So those were kind of the big numbers, but the union payroll admin was offset by the maintenance payroll, if I have that correct.
Here, I can pull up the report.
So Denise,
Mhm.
so if we think back to what the decision we made about the Board of Education, I believe the number was about a 4.1% increase, 4.2%, in what we ultimately voted on. And so this is 4.62. It's a little higher. It's in the ballpark from my perspective. So I see it as fine and not in need of change, in my opinion.
Mhm. Well reasoned. And where are we on track with electricity there? Is there any room for shaving now? I was thinking we could drop it $5,000 maybe.
I think I lost it. Hold on here. Losing internet connection. Okay, here we go. We're trending high on electric, so we've already spent 18,000. So that count's going to be about 9,000 over. Judging how things are going right now.
So then probably not any room to,
I probably wouldn't cut that electric line right now.
all right.
Just looking to see if there's any anomaly
You see the
expenses in here.
Board of Selectmen already did a,
Yeah,
they did a,
they cut
Yeah.
significantly in
Yep.
they
places.
did significant cuts
I
already.
tend to agree.
Mhm. All right, so I'm good. Everybody else good? You're good, Jerry? All right, so we will continue our budget deliberations on Monday. We can move on to public discussion. We have no public, unless Jerry wanted to say anything. Nope.
Kevin, what are the reductions total right now?
You want to swap over, James? So right now where we are under 7% overall. Our tax increase is a little higher at 7.06. I gotta look at that because it's been trending under. It's about 7% right now. I mean, taxes are making up the majority of the increase. It's about 7%.
And that's still with looking at the old collection rate.
That's looking at 98.7. The Board of Selectmen increased it about 0.5%, 0.55%. So, but I still think it could get ramped up to probably 99 to be safe. So about 675, 676.
And for the viewers at home, how does that impact the budget?
By about 1/4%.
So the mill rate example on homes, I think you're
Oh, yep.
asking, right?
Yep.
So, let me just make sure this all jives. 2821. Yep. So if your house is worth, let me just clean this up for a second. So if your house is valued at $500,000, right? Your assessed value of your house is $350,000 because the assessment is 70%. Your taxes this year were $9,200. Your taxes next year will be just shy of $9,900.
And that's where pretty much the majority of our housing stock kind of falls in that 350 to 500, or
Yeah, I think last time we looked, medium house was over 400.
I know there was a question last year about having something similar for like the commercial properties. I don't know whether that's just a,
I mean, I believe commercial gets assessed at the same value, 70%.
yeah,
Yeah.
so maybe it's just adding some more,
A couple more tabs, 2.5,
Yeah.
5 million, stuff like that, maybe.
yeah.
Okay, I'll extend it. I think it's all formula based, so I think I should just be able to drag and drop.
And then maybe Kevin, just once you've had a chance to, noodle your numbers tomorrow, if you want to
Send it out to
send
the
that
boards.
out to us, and then that way we can take a look. Any other comments by the board? I would just say thank you very much. I know tonight was a very difficult night, and I feel badly that we weren't 100%, but I appreciate everybody's efforts and hard work, and it's a tough job. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned, and we will see you back here on Monday.
Thank you.